Hey there, I'm McCare with More Piranha Gardens, and I am gardening in North Texas where we have already, it's June 26th, we've already had several days over 100. So I want to talk to you today about deep watering and why we deep water and all the stuff. So let's do that. First things first, let me tell you that this YouTube video is broken into chapters. So if you want to skip ahead and if you want to skip back later, all cool, you can do all of that. It's going to be at the bottom here, somewhere right about there, or you can go down in the description to get the timestamps. Why do we deep water? Well, here in North Texas, right now it's 7:30 a.m. and it's only 77 degrees, and this is the coolest that it's been all week at this time of day. Last night, when I fed the chickens at 7:30 p.m., the heat index was still over 110 and the temperature was still over 100. It gets hot, so the top of our soil dries quick. We water deeply, and this is also better for your plants. Plants like tomatoes will send their roots down pretty deep into the ground. So if this part of the soil dries out, they're okay if there's water down here. Let's say this is my soil line, my index finger. Lettuce might have roots that take up this much space, but tomatoes are going to come down here by my elbow. So I want to make sure that I'm watering so it sinks all the way through. And then as the soil starts to dry out, it's going to dry out near the top, and that bottom of the water is going to stay down there, and the plant's going to send its roots farther and farther into the ground looking for more water. What that does is it allows us to handle this kind of heat. If our situation is correct, it allows us to water less often in extreme heat. I'm watering every 48 to 72 hours in my established beds. Other things are different, we'll come to that. So we water deeply so that our plants learn to look deeply for water and so that they can handle situations. Now, different kinds of plants are going to need different schedules. I mentioned that I'm watering my established plants every 48 to 72 hours in this extreme heat. Now, my Three Sisters garden that has corn and watermelon and pumpkin in it and beans, but they're fine. Those things need a lot of water. Those things need to be watered daily. So that one little garden gets watered every night. I usually do it at night. Anything that I have transplanted or direct seeded recently gets watered daily until it gets some roots down, and then I start to spread it out. And then the deeper rooted things get watered when the top of the soil is dry and when the plants are looking a little bit stressed, because I do know that this bed is well established and that these tomatoes are able to put down deep roots here. Those are big factors. If your beds are new and you're on clay, you might need to water more often because it's going to hit that clay, the water's going to hit that clay and run until it learns to soak down. Which brings us to soil is naturally hydrophobic. Soil does not like taking in water. So when we deep water, we're going to cover the surface. We're going to wet the surface first, and I'm going to show you. And then we water deep. Hey, I almost forgot to tell you about when to water. And it does matter. The very best time to water is early in the morning before it gets hot for the day. That lets your plants have that water available to them all day long. And if you do get the leaves wet, it helps them to dry off. The next best time is in the evening after it's not so hot. Now, here, that means if I come out and water at 7:30, it's 100 instead of 105. Still better than in the middle of the day, but less ideal. But if my plants don't need water in the morning, but they're looking wilty at night, I will water at night. The third best time is whenever your plants look like they're struggling. If your plants look like if they don't get water now, they are going to die, water them. If it is 110, just make sure that you water the soil and not the plant. You don't want to get sunburn from the water droplets, okay? Best time, early morning. Next best time, evening, late evening, early night. Third best time, whenever you gotta. Do be careful about the whenever you gotta's. Try to stay on top of things so you don't do that, because you don't want the cold water shocking your plants. And if you do have to water while it's hot, make sure you get all of that boiling hot water out of the hose before you start to water your plants. All right, back at it. All right, so I have 3 different types of garden situations here. I have beds that were recently sheet mulched with cardboard. So this is one of my older beds. This is the second oldest bed on this property. And the grass had grown in, so I just laid down a new cover of cardboard before I planted this year and threw mulch on top of it in the form of straw and hay and let it be like that. So this garden has big sheets of cardboard with holes where the plants are. So that's going to need a special kind of watering. I have some beds that I did this sheet mulching with the cardboard more than a couple of months ago, so it's mostly broken down. And then my third kind of beds are beds that either never had cardboard or have not had cardboard in quite a while. There's no existing cardboard there. And those are going to be just your regular in-ground garden beds. I personally do not do raised beds. Back about 10 years ago, I got into square foot gardening for a little bit. It's a really good place to learn. It will teach you a whole bunch about plant spacing and what you can put together and what good soil looks like. But actually doing a raised bed in North Texas on top of clay, I had to water twice a day, and I'm not into that. That's not my thing. So I personally do not do raised beds. If you have raised beds and they're working for you, awesome, keep it going. Be aware that you might need to water more often. All right, now I am going to tell you this one thing before we get started. We're about to get started. This one very important thing is that you need to mulch deeply if you are in a hot climate. You need to mulch deeply anyway. It's good for your soil, it's good for your plants, it's good for your soil life. But if you are in a crazy hot climate or a crazy dry climate, mulch is your best friend. That is going to insulate your ground and keep it from getting so hot. It's going to keep your ground from cracking. It's going to help your ground hold water. Mulch a lot. Mulch deeply. This, when I put this straw down here, it was about like this. Now it's settled. Are you ready? Let's do this. As I mentioned, this bed is covered in cardboard underneath the straw. And if you look right down here, you can see where all I did was I cut a triangle into the cardboard and I dropped the plant into that hole. All right, so everything between the tomatoes, everything out to this line is covered in cardboard that is not broken down yet. It's getting there. Like when I pull on it, it's soft. It feels like cardboard that's been wet for a while. And we want to help this cardboard break down. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come through and I'm going to spray the top of the straw and the cardboard all the way down. You're going to do this on all your beds when you water, whether they are sheet mulched or not. This is going to get some water on there. Let these substances start to absorb that water. Start letting the sides of the soil get coated with water so the rest of the water can slip down when we do deep water. Okay, so that's step one. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come through, I'm going to put my sprayer right up to the soil, and I'm going to do that. Now, with my sprayer, I know that putting it directly like this, I need to leave it there for about 30 seconds. My old sprayer was slower and I had to do almost a minute. So you just need to kind of know what volume it comes out. And you learn this by doing this for a little bit. And then, so I'm doing this in the morning. If I came back tonight and this plant looked stressed and thirsty, I would know I didn't do enough. I would do more tonight. And then the next time I would know I need to water deeper. All right, so I'm just going to run down the line. And it takes a little while. But the more attention I put into getting this cardboard broken down, the less time it's going to take, and we'll see that in other gardens, okay? I've got one more here back behind you, excuse me. All right, so when I was down there at the Abe Lincoln, I had my foot next to the hole that I was watering and I started to notice water running onto my foot, that means that it's sheeting over the cardboard. So I'm going to adjust where my sprayer is when I start to notice that, because that means that plant is not getting watered. It's watering the grass over here instead and the cardboard, which they appreciate also, but we're trying to water the plants at this particular moment. All right, I don't really want to sit down here right now. I did them all, and then I went back down and sprayed the surface again to help cool the mulch and to help break down that cardboard. I did get my plants wet. This is something that you want to be careful with. If you're in a cooler or a damper climate, you definitely don't want to get your tomatoes wet, your tomato plants wet. Yeah, they get wet when it rains. Rain is different than hose water. It's going to be hot today. I'm doing this in the morning, and I prune my plants. So all of those things are going to reduce the harm of having wet tomato plants. Now, you might have noticed that as I went down the line, I was picking suckers on some of these. That is one of the reasons that I hand water still, is that I want to be able to spend that time to look at my plants and tend them. I can weed, I can prune, I can do these kinds of things. I can notice that that one little plant down there needs to be tied up. And hand watering allows me to address things like breaking down the cardboard, or when I come back through in a couple of weeks and interplant some basil, dill, those kinds of things. I ran out of those plants. I need to restart. Then, those little things will be watered more often than these established tomatoes at first. So hand watering allows me to meet the different needs of the different plants. Helicopter. Okay, now let's go take a look at a different garden. This one's gonna be sheet mulched, but it was sheet mulched months ago. So a lot of it's broken down, and it's just gonna be a little bit different of a watering situation. Here we are in the pepper bed, and I mean that quite literally. I am in the pepper bed. And we have other things in here. I mentioned interplanting down there. So we have dill, we have some different kinds of basil and different kinds of flowers and those sorts of things in with the peppers to help them out. So I put down this garden several months ago. So a lot of the cardboard has already started to break down, and there's a cat right off screen, I was about to say. And that cat right there that you cannot see, she naps over here sometimes. So now there's some little dips between plants that will collect water. And I think our possums also chill over here. Suburban property. Wildlife. I love it. It's awesome. Because this was sheet mulched, we do need to be aware that there are spots, there's still cardboard, and that we do need to target the base of the plants, but also we can be a bit more broad about it because that cardboard is breaking down. So we're going to start out just the same. We're going to wet the top of the soil, and then we're going to come back. And I know that between this poblano and this dill, the cardboard is mostly broken down. There's a little hole where it broke down all the way. So I'm going to water between those two plants when I get to them instead of watering the poblano and the dill. And this is another thing that's going to teach their roots to go looking for water better than just like hand feeding them water. By the way, if you put mycorrhizal fungi into your planting holes or put it on top and water it in, that is going to help with your plants being able to moderate their water, whether they're in drought or flood. It's going to help them take up the appropriate amount of water better, and it's going to help them regulate their nutrition. So I'll put a link in the description for where you can get some of that. But if you are dealing with an extreme hot or an extreme dry climate, get you some. It's going to help. All right, since this one is a little more broken down, I don't have to go stand over each hole and hold my sprayer to the bottom of the plant. I can stand back and water from a little bit of a distance. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find gaps between plants. So I already talked about between the poblano and the dill, and I'm just going to focus the hose there for about 30 seconds. Now, while I'm doing this, that nasturtium, this jalapeno, that jalapeno, and that jalapeno are also getting watered. Because I am counting on several plants to catch this water, I'm going to leave this sprayer going a little bit longer than I did when I was doing just one plant at a time. So as I'm looking, I'm seeing that I can see good spots of cardboard in a couple of different places. So I'm gonna come back tonight or tomorrow and I'm gonna put another layer of mulch on this garden. Everything is dealing with the heat really well, except for the nasturtiums, of course. I just wanna give them a little extra insulation because it's still only June and this is the coolest summer month in Texas and we've already been over 100. So July and August are, they're looking a little scary. So I'm gonna continue doing this. You can hang out right there. Got some pineapple bed. Do you grow this? Grow this. All right, let's skip over to the kitchen garden, which has not had cardboard in 2 years. Hey, before we get to that kitchen garden, let's have a real quick chat about your subscribe button. Is it still red? If it's still red and you're enjoying this content, would you please click it? Thank you. I would appreciate that. And would you mind go ahead and clicking that like button? Both of those things let YouTube know that people like you like videos like mine, and that helps me grow my channel, which helps you get more material. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, so here we are in the kitchen garden. And as you can see, it is very established. The plants are spaced close together. We have that established yarrow down there that went in last spring that is really spread. We have a very well-established catnip in here. In this bed, I also do have one little lonely Thai chili pepper plant, or it's a twin. It's two Thai chili peppers growing up next to each other. So that I come back and hit with water every 24 to 36 because it's been in the ground about a week and a half. So it needs a little bit more water as it's learning how to put its feet down in the ground. I bet you can guess what we're gonna do first. Okay, ready? You're gonna say it out loud on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes, we're gonna wet the top first. So I'm gonna spray down my mulch. I'm gonna fill up Toad Island down there. I don't know if you saw the saucer with rocks in it. And this one's gonna go much easier because I don't have to worry about cardboard. Also a great opportunity to stretch your ankles and your feet while you're standing there. All right, we did it. We watered a sheep mulched garden. We watered a sheep mulched garden in which the cardboard is breaking down, and we watered a plain old regular in-ground garden. Now let's review the important things. Mulch is your best friend. Mulch will save your butt. Mulch will save your water bill. Mulch will save your plants. Okay, get mulched. Soil is hydrophobic, so you want to do that top sheet of water before you deep water. Your plants want to reach down for water. It's going to help them survive. So water deeply less often rather than shallowly more often. If you water shallowly more often, your plants will die. Their roots will not go down deep. They will tip over, be malnourished. Bad stuff. Get out there and take care of your garden. Later, y'all.